Hello, friends. Welcome to our class today. So in today's class, we will be looking at an interesting topic, working with MySQL, how to import an Excel file into MySQL. And of course, as you know, oftentimes, as I mentioned, that for me, MySQL is a simple programming language. And just stay tuned as we learn together. So the first thing I'm going to do is to navigate directly to my SQL workbench. Right here, I'm going to connect to the workspace section. To do that, I'm going to click at this part where we have local instance MySQL 80. So I'm going to click on it and I'll wait for some seconds as it goes directly to the workspace. And of course, I believe your SQL is already set up. So you're going to practice whatever we'll be doing. All right, so going by the topic for today's class, we are looking at how we can be able to import our Excel file into SQL. No more the long process of creating your database, creating your table. As you can see at my schema section, I don't have to do all that. So to make it easier, first thing you need to know is that in today's world, Excel file is a spreadsheet which has also several powerful features. Okay, and majority of organizations oftentimes work with Excel. A lot of them, even here in my country, Nigeria, they make use of Excel. They want to send you a file, they send it through Excel. Whatever they want to do, they need a report, they'll ask you to prepare, they'll send to Excel. So you can import that file directly to MySQL. And following our training, and trust me, it's something, a process which is actually easier. All right, so let us look into the Excel file that we want to import. So let's assume that you're working for a company called Company A. A company sent you this pivot table, okay? These sales transactions for year 2018. And this pivot table format. And you're told that please, can you run some analysis? Want to know the total sum from this? Want to know the total sum by brand? Want to know the price? And you can see we have for different quarter. Scrolling down this quarter one, we have mixture of both transactions for quarter four, and so on and so forth. Okay, so you know very well that the SQL is important, or it's one of the best tools when it comes to you being able to handle those data managed in your database. So as usual, the first thing we're going to do whenever you want to import your data from an Excel file to SQL, you first of all need to save that Excel file in what we call the CSV format. CSV format. So I'm going to do that quickly. So to do that, let me assume, okay, this is for future, for trading company limited. Okay, I'm just going to take off these headings, but that's not I'm going to affect your work actually. The only thing we'll be needing is just the column, the title column, what I call the title column. So I'll go straight to my file menu and save this file. Click on Save As. Where will I save this? Let me save it to the desktop. And let's wait for it to come up. So now it's up. Now, we can still maintain the name, or we can say Company A. Company A. Let's give it a name. Let's say sales transaction. This is sales transaction table. You know what we mean by a table in SQL. So I'm going to come down to this part that says save as type. So what type of format are we saving? Remember I said you have to change the format from Excel to what? The comma delimited. That's the CSV format. So I'm going to select CSV. Then I hit my save button. That's all. It's asking me that some features in your workbook might be lost. None will be lost. Trust me. Just say yes. So you can maintain your CSV file format. And of course, you know that in some business houses in which there are many large numbers of data, they store their data in Excel. And after storing that data, these businesses, these organizations want some application which helps them to store in various other applications, which could be in the web application database, in the SQL database, which handles millions of data for you, making it possible for you to be able to manage data held in databases. So let's look into this on how we'll be able to import this data into my SQL database. All right, so since we have saved it in CSV, the next thing we're going to do, we'll jump straight to our workbench. Remember how I connected to the workbench. So first thing first, what is SQL? I've told you time to time that when you're working with SQL, like SQL has to do with database, creating database, and also you being able to communicate with data held in your database. And that's where managing your data comes in. And you know that we have a data here, which I said data is at the heart of all applications like this. So the first thing you need to do, you need to create a house for that data you want to import. You cannot just import it here without creating a house where you want it to be stored. And here in SQL, it's very easy to create that house. We'll call that house our database. We'll give it a name for that report or record company have given to you to analyze. So the first thing I'm going to do right here, you can see where I am going to create a database. Now, how do you create a database? It's very easy. When you open your SQL workbench, come to the section, normally it will be in administration, but come to schema section. When you come to schema section, what you're going to do here, right click at any point here. When you right click, you'll see we have create schema. So schema is the terminology for database. For database, when you want to create your database, you use create schema, okay, to do that. Now, if you don't want to use this pattern of right clicking and selecting create schema or anywhere in this section or schema area, you can either go to the top bar. You see some little icons. You see this one that looks like cylinder. So we use this to create new database. It's another option of how to create. Or you can also use what we call the create statement. Okay, where I will say create database. I give the name of the database, but I don't want to use any of these method, but it's something you can still use. So let me introduce you to this cylinder method. So I'll come over here to this top bar. I'll click on this cylinder. When I click on that cylinder, it's going to bring up this new window. So all these icons you need to familiarize yourself with. For example, if I want to create a new page, I will use the script. Okay, create a new script. This is what I mean. If I click on that icon, it brings me to a new script. So I can close this also. So this is my schema. I'll close this. This is it. I clicked on the cylinder. It brought this. Now, what's the name of the database? Let me just say sales record, sales record, sales record, sales reports. All right, so I'm done. I'll just come down and say apply. When I say apply, SQL brings this, telling me to review, that they want to review the SQL script to be applied on the database. And of course, you should know that SQL does two things. It queries your data, it reads your data. So now I'm going to say apply. So if it's successful, it's going to inform me of that. You can see that the SQL script was successfully applied to the database. So I'll say finish. So just like this, ladies and gentlemen, I'm done creating what we call a database. And a database is that collection of all your data, where your data is being stored, gives you, you ensure that your data is stored. All right. So since I've created this sales report, I will now go to this sales report database. Under it, I will now import my data as a table, because every database contains a table. It's just like the object-oriented programming language, which we all know is called VBA. For those of you who have enrolled in our trainings on VBA, okay? Same way it follows, having addresses. So from database, the next address is what? Is what we call the table. And table, we now move to what we call its contents, which are the columns and the row. So what's going to happen here, I'm just going to refresh this little refresh icon and take this off. So right here, I'm going to come straight up to this list of databases. So the one I'm concerned about is what I've just created called sales reports database. So I'll click on the little arrow. Then you see that there are no tables for this database, and every database must have a table. So I'll come to that table, I'll click on it, and I'll right click. When I right click, I will see these 5 options: create table like, search table data import wizard, refresh all. I'll select table data import wizard because I want to import that data right on Excel. So it will bring this new screen for me. On this new screen, I'm going to click on browse so I can be able to go and browse that file that I've saved. So when I go, I'll then come, where did I save it? Desktop. I cite desktop. Let's look for it. You can see it here. It says transaction. I'll come down and say open. Before that, you can see by the side here, we have it as comma separated values. That's the CSV file format I told you of to save it. So I'll say open. Once I do that, it has been selected. So I'll click next. Once I click next, SQL is going to bring this. Yes, of course, we want to create a new table based on this data we are importing. It says reports. So I'll just say next. So once I do that, take and be calm and look at each of these columns. Make sure it reflects the number of columns that we have. So if we go back to that Excel spreadsheet, you see how many columns we have from column A, B, C, that's 3, D4, E5, F6, G7, H8. You can see we have 8 columns. So what I'm just going to do right here is this quickly. I will check to ensure that the 8 columns are all here. We have a column for date, we have a column for quarter, we have a column for model name, we have a column for category, we have a column for brand, we have a column for price, we have a column for quantity, we have a column for total. But there are other columns that are here. I'm just going to untick them, like my unknown column. We don't have any column for that. So let's go back and check. Okay, there is total to date. Okay, so I'm just going to do this quickly. We have dates to total. So that's perfect. That's perfect. So if you look here on what I call maybe the immediate window, I use VBA most times to write my codes and call that the immediate window. You can also call it here in SQL as the output window. So if you look here, you'll see that's my unknown. So these are errors. These are errors. So we must make sure you untick them. So once I'm done, I will say next. Now it's time, ladies and gentlemen, to import that data. So how do I go about this? I'm just going to select import data file. Am I going to select import data file? Am I going to select prepare import? No, I don't need to do that. All I have to do is just to click on next, and I will watch SQL reads and query this data for me by execution. So it's trying to import that data file. Now it's taking time. Who can tell me why it's taking time? Okay, it's taking time because that's a big data. Okay, that's what we call big data. Assuming that data, let's say the data stopped at row 13. This record stopped at row 13. Guess what would have happened? It would have just been sharp, pap, to import it. But this is a large data for quarter 1 to 4. If you scroll down, you can see it's more than, this is now row what? This is row 696, in that this data is large. It's large. Just see, even going towards 1,000. Okay, that's 1,002 records for these sales transactions. So you can see that for SQL to import that, it must take a little time for it to do that. So ladies and gentlemen, it has imported it. Okay, you can see it imports. It's not even up to 2 minutes or 1 minute. It's already imported and load up quickly. So it says finish performing tasks. It has read the data and has queried it. So I'm now going to hit the next button. Then you can see right here, it tells us that 1,001 records imported. Now, this is where you will know if it's correct or not. Okay, you're to confirm those records you have, are they up to 1,001 or not? If you come straight to Excel, I just showed you now that this data is up to what? 1,002. 1,002. You can see it here. 1,002 row number. Now, why SQL is telling us that we have 1,001 records imported? Now, you might be saying, sir, why is it not SQL not telling us that it's 1,002? The reason is because this is the data. The 1,001 is the data we have in the spreadsheet. What is not there, the exception of one, is the title column. And we have already indicated the title column. Now, this is what I mean. This is what I mean. If you want to use the counts, of course, I will show you in our next meeting how to use the count commands to be able to get various, analysis depending on what you want to work on. So if peradventure we are looking at this here, you can see that if you take away row 1, what do we left? Is that not 1001 data? Yes. So title column is already an exception. So moving forward with this, I'm going to click on finish button here. I'll say finish, and that's it. That's it. Our data have been imported. How do I know? How do I go about bringing that data that is imported now? I'll click on this refresh button. When I click on it, if I come to sales reports, this sales reports, remember the database we saved is sales reports. When I come there, I click on the little arrow, I'll see table. Table now has an arrow. So that's the first way you know that your data have been imported. Now, how do I know again? I'll click on that table arrow. It now shows me, gives birth to another child called sales transaction. And this is the table. If I click on sales transaction, I'll now see the content, columns. I'm not talking of index now. I'm not talking of foreign keys. I'm not talking of triggers. I will now click on the arrow close to columns. I will see those, my 8 columns. From date, quarter, model name, category, brand, price, quantity, total. Now, I want to start my analysis, or I want to play over my data, sales transaction data using SQL to run my analysis. What do I do to bring it up? I'll just come over here and click on this little icon, table icon. Okay, there are several ways to do that. You can use the select statement to select the sales transaction from here, or you can decide to just click on this icon and you see all the data you've already created pops up for you. And it's as simple as that. So this is just how to import your data. You can scroll down this data. We can now begin to run our analysis, which will be, and maybe you want to use what we call aggregate functions. Maybe you want to know the total sales, all those you use the select sum, and trust me, you'll be able to do that. So ladies and gentlemen, this year we are going to stop, and at this point our mission has been achieved. So this is how to import your data to Excel. A review that file sent to you by your boss on Excel, just go straight, open it in Excel, change the save type to CSV format, the comma separated values, then come over to SQL Workbench. Then what do you do here? Go straight, create your database, then go on that table on the database, right click, select table data import wizard, follow the steps as shown in the video, and allow it to SQL to execute by reading and querying your data. Then when you're done, either use the select statement to select this data you've imported from that database. And of course, as always, I always say, always use, first of all, use a statement we call use command to indicate the database we are working on. We are not an employee record that is being highlighted. Our table record is under sales report database. So I'll just say use sales reports. Always maintain the syntax, use sales reports, semicolon. So let me execute this so you can see that sales report is now highlighted. So ladies and gentlemen, this is where we're going to stop. So stay tuned for our next video, our next class, which is on how to analyze, come up with different analysis. Maybe you want to be asked to analyze the total amounts, the total quantity, different kind of calculations like maximum, minimum, and others. This we call aggregate, working with aggregate, basic aggregate, advanced aggregate with SQL. So stay tuned. My name is Williams, and thank you for joining us. Thank you. Bye.